Hi, friends. It's Deanna Williston with our Blooming Catholic Life. And in our Lectio Divina on Ash Wednesday, we also looked at the role of ashes in the life of St. Francis. Just a few instances of it. We looked at, we grabbed them from St. Francis of Assisi, Early Documents, The Saints, which is volume 1. And I wanted to revisit that today. I want to read that again. Because, much like King David, in this part of our psalm, he has a father. And here, in his life, is in peril. Here, what I want to read today with the ashes with St. Francis, his life is passing. And he has a father. And this is written by his some of his sons. The history of some of his sons. So we have it both in The Life of St. Francis by Julian of Spare. It is in chapter 17, starting in line 69 and going, section 69. And also in the, if you've never heard of this, it's quite beautiful. The same life event, but covered by Henri de Avraches. And he versified the life of St. Francis. So we're going to read it once in prose and once in poetry. I think I've got that right. I just thought I'd add to our Lenten reflection, and then we'll jump back in to our penitential psalm. But as always, friends, let's begin with St. Francis' prayer before the crucifix. Summe gloriosa Deus. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Summe glorioso Deus, illumina tenebras cordis mehi, et a mihi fidem rectum, spem certum et caritatem perfectum, Domini ut facium tuum sanctum et verax mandatum. Amen. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Now this is the end of the life of St. Francis, where he was taken back to St. Mary of the Portiuncula, wishing to return his soul to the Lord there in that very place, where first, as we have said, he came to know the way of truth perfectly. He had counseled the brothers to guard that place with all reverence and honor. He maintained that it was especially suitable for prayer and divine services, and he said that it was visited by a multitude of spirits from above. He rested a few days in that place he longed for, until knowing that the hour of death was finally near, he called 2 brothers to him, whom he instructed quickly to proclaim loudly in the song the praises of the Lord for his nearing death. He himself, as much as he could, broke forth into this psalm. With my voice I have cried to the Lord, with my voice I have beseeched the Lord. Ah, kind Father, behold your sons who remain here without a father. Be mindful of the orphans whom you are deserting, and forgiving all our faults, deign to console with your holy blessing those present and those absent. The most pious Father answered him, Behold, my son, I am now being called by the Lord. Truly, I remit all the offenses and faults of my brothers, present and absent, and as much as I can, I absolve them. Do you, when you report these things to them, my son, bless them all for me. Then he asked that the Gospel according to John be read to him, with the passage that begins, the day before the Passover. Then he instructed the brothers to cover him with a hair shirt and sprinkle him with ashes. Thus, with his sons standing around him in mourning, the Holy Father happily fell asleep in the Lord. In versified form, we have this from sections 65 and 70. And make his way towards Christ, when whence he first clung to Christ, carried thither, for by now no power of movement of his own has he, the life that hung by so thin a thread, and by which he cannot salvage for earthly time, he saves for endless ages. O soldier brave, and vindicator invincible. Misfortune masters him not, for he draws energy out of his very weakness, and that which renders him lifeless is that which enlivens him. For the battles he waged, unwearied in life, more gallantly still he completes in death, sprinkled with ashes and a goatskin garb on him. And although seeing final destiny appear, naught dreads he who for aught mortal never craved. Scorns he the sadness of the dying, since he had but scorn for the pleasures of the living. Then those he loved as partners, and the work he praised will share also his wages on high. and that his soul may bless them before he dies. He calls them all together around him, and through those present he sends out to the absent a message of all that seems goodly, and prays upon both his farewell. Meanwhile, as the father's sad departure approaches, grief runs free as for a funeral, and touches hearts with emotion, and to faces brings rivers of tears. He, wishing not that there be a cause for his friends to mourn, says, "Why weep for me, when I for you instead should weep? For I go back to my fatherland, whereas exile detains you. After the torments I've been through, I rest, but you toil on. I am in the city where I belong, but you are pilgrims still. Led through fire and water, I am brought relief, and a bright horizon makes up for dangers on the way. Was not the life I lived a death? And what but life shall my death bring? This life I have reckoned lost for Christ, who lost his life for us, and payment he will kindly give. For me the loss, salvation, for the ruin. Long have I fought and sighed and gone without food, and now at last, these many struggles ended, I march on triumphant. After all the sighing, I walk in gladness. All the fasting finished, I go full fed. Why should I detain you and say much more? Wretched was I here, a pity to behold, the lowest of the low, death's own, tired out, but summoned now to the kingdom. A happy wretch is on his way, a sad one heads for gladness. The lowest of creatures reaches stars marked for death. He shall seize on life, a tired one takes his leisure. So let no one be my friend, I pray, that pities me. It is joy he must share with me. Rejoice with me. For I am called from pain to pleasure, a prisoner in a mundane cell to liberty celestial. As a finishing touch to my work for Christ so gracious, sing ye a song of joy, a hymn of your praises on my behalf. He said this, say, the brothers about to begin the psalms. And now while they continue singing, he sings himself, though dying. And with what voice he has breaks into the psalm. With all my voice I cry to the Lord. Next, he asked for this gospel reading. Jesus was certain before the day of the Passover that his hour had come, when he should pass to the kingdom of the Father, from the prison of the world and the rest. On this instruction, the minister brings the books and opens it, and amidst the various lessons in the big volume, this is the one that first appears. Lovely. There's a 14th book after this. This does not end there. I did not stop. I read through to verse 120. It goes on. It's a lovely meditation on the death of St. Francis of Assisi, which is a lovely meditation for your Lenten practice. And here, let us join King David in hiding and in fear of his very life from his own son, quite the opposite. Let us hear and join in with him as he cries out, as our own inner faults cry out to the Lord. Hear, O Lord, my prayer. Give ear to my supplication in thy truth. Hear me in thy justice, and enter not into judgment with thy servant. For in thy sight no man living shall be justified. Friends, I pray that you reach out, use this time of Lent to cry out to the Lord, to go to confession at least once, if not every week in confession. There's going to be lots of special opportunities, and I beg you to avail yourself of them. Hear, O Lord, my prayer. Give ear to my supplication in thy truth. Hear me in thy justice, and enter not into judgment with thy servant. For in thy sight no man living shall be justified. And friends, I say again, the Lord's mercy is amazing and wonderful, but we must turn to him to receive it. And here is David crying out. He knows he has not been perfect and that his death may be imminent, as well as from the hands of his own son. Has he mistreated this son? You can go back and read that. In the book, we had St. Francis begging quickly. He would go as soon as he believed that he had sinned or even just thought a thought against someone. He would run to them and confess it to them and beg them for forgiveness. Friends, let us use this season to examine our own faults, take them to confession, learn how to grow in our virtues, and grow in our relationship with Christ. What a beautiful Easter morning when we are there at the tomb waiting for the Lord. Hear, O Lord, my prayer. Give ear to my supplication in thy truth. Hear me in thy justice, and enter not into judgment with thy servant. For in thy sight no man living shall be justified. It is the grace and mercy of God that does this for us. If you, friends, have not been baptized, I invite you to run. Don't walk to your closest Catholic church and talk with a priest today. I will say our little verses one more time and then leave you for the day. Hear, O Lord, my prayer. Give ear to my supplication in thy truth. Hear me in thy justice, and enter not into judgment with thy servant, for in thy sight no man living shall be justified.